Go.
Hello, my name is Ann Marie Beale, minister of Unity Church of the Cumberlands. Today, we're not going to talk about the virus. We're not going to talk about all the problems of the world. Today, we're going to say Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. And that includes women too, because we have the father archetype, the father principle in all of us. Now, did anyone ever say to you when you were younger, there's an old expression, I remember you when you were just a twinkle in your father's eye. Did anybody say that to you? Well, in Unity we have another one, and it goes like this. You are an infinite idea in the mind of God. Your way is made easy. You are an infinite idea in divine mind. When we say the mind of God, we don't mean there's a God in the sky that has a mind, but divine intelligence in and through and underneath all life. Divine is, so repeat with me, I am an infinite idea in divine mind. My way is made easy. Doesn't that make you feel good? Now, back in the 80s and the 90s, there were a lot of self-help books. And the ones for men, well, there was Robert Bly. Did any of you do the fire in the belly thing with Robert Bly? And there were some others, maybe a little less intimidating, by Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette, about the ancient archetype of the male, the father figure. And the one book talks about the 4 different archetypes of the father. And everyone is to decide which one they relate to the most. Are you a king, a warrior, a magician, or a lover? A king, a warrior, a magician, or the lover? Which one, which archetype do you fit into the most? Now the book begins in the Emerald Forest, where they're having rituals. The indigenous people take their young boys out into the woods, out into the forest, and leave them there. It could be overnight, it could be for days or a week. And when they come back and get them, it's been a challenging experience for them. Some may even come near death. But they come out of this ritual, this rite of passage as men. And this ritual helps them claim the role, their destiny, whether to be a king, a magician, a warrior, or a lover. They prepare them for that. Now let's look at the first one, the archetype of the king. Now metaphysically, the king in each of us is what we're ruled by. What is our ruling energy that rules us? What motivates you? Is it the thirst for power and control? Is it fear? Is it about what other people think about you? Is it about having achievements or success? Is it food? What motivates you? What rules you? In the Bible, there were many kings, and each of them had a different energy that ruled them. King Saul was the first king of the Israelites. And unfortunately, he was ruled by fear. Now we've got to cut him some slack. It was early on in the evolution of human consciousness. And all of us have had to walk through that. Am I going to be ruled by fear? King Saul had anxiety attacks because he put his faith and trust in the outer world of appearances. Anyone trust and have faith in the outer world right now, the way everything looks? Am I giving my power to fear? Is that what I'm going to let rule me the rest of my life? Each of us has to ask ourselves that question. And the Course in Miracles reminds us, if you are relying on your own power, you have every right to be afraid. If you're relying on your own power instead of spirit. Now, King Saul could have benefited from a ritual, from a rite of passage. He even used to have David, as a young boy, play the lyre to calm him. But then King Saul got so paranoid, he was afraid David would want to be king and would end up killing him. So that didn't even help anymore. King Saul was so afraid he was going to die in battle that he went to see a psychic, which was rather humorous because he's the king who outlawed going to psychics. You may remember I talked about King Saul on Halloween going to the witch of Endor, and she foretold his death. Saul, you are in deep doo-doo. He did die in battle. That which he feared came upon him. When we're ruled by fear, we draw it to us. Now, metaphysically, what is he and me? Well, King Saul represents my own fears and weaknesses that have to die in me. I have to die to those fears and weaknesses. So at some point, we all have to say no to fear. Now, King Saul was followed by King David, and he ruled with love. But it was human, egoic love. It was a possessing love. He fell in love with Bathsheba, and she was married. So he sent her husband into battle to the front lines where he was sure he would be killed. David had a bit of a selfish ego, and so God did not allow him, according to the story, to build the temple. He waited until King David died, and then Solomon became king, and he was allowed to build the temple. Solomon, now remember, we're talking about the evolution of human consciousness here. Solomon was ruled by wisdom. Remember, God asked him for whatever he wanted, he said he could have. And King Solomon asked for wisdom. God granted his wish. Can you imagine a world leader asking for wisdom? Wonderful idea. Now let's recap. Remember, this is our own evolution of consciousness. Saul was ruled by fear, and we have to say no to fear as well. David was ruled by love, but it was an egoic, human love. Solomon was ruled by wisdom, but even his was in beginning stages. He had that whole tryst with the Queen of Sheba, which is a whole nother story for another Sunday. Each one of us has those same archetypes in us. So how have you evolved? What is your ruling nature in you? Now, if you're familiar with the tarot or any deck of cards, there are 4 kings, and they too represent the 4 aspects of human nature. The King of Pentacles represents the material world, someone who is ruled by the desire to make it in this world in a material fashion. He's the king that says, he who has the most toys wins. The King of Swords is a more mental ruling force. That king is a bit anal retentive, very smart, all mental with little heart or compassion. The King of Cups is a feeling nature kind of king, very kind and compassionate. But you can see where we need a balance of the head and the heart for wholeheartedness. And then there's the 4th king, the King of Wands, the spiritual king, ruled by his spiritual nature. And I mean spiritual, not religious. Remember, religions divide us. Spirituality joins us, unites us, and listens to the voice of spirit, of the divine nature, not the voice of the human ego. Well, which is your ruling king? Okay, let's go on to the warrior. The second archetype is the warrior. And the warrior, believe it or not, is not about fighting. But what do warriors do most? They keep moving forward. If you're in a stuck place, you can move out of that. You can advance, expand your life, move forward. Move your cup up there. Yeah. Metaphysically, in us, the warrior has that will to move forward on the spiritual path and not stay stuck. Now, the modern day archetype would be General George Patton, although he must have been very difficult to be with. He never gave up. He kept advancing, kept moving forward. He didn't care what happened, who got hurt. He just kept going forward. He had a very strong will. And there are women who are warriors too. Joan of Arc kept moving forward, kept doing what she was called to do, even though they eventually burned her at the stake. So when we're stuck in our comfort zone, when we're in a stuck place, we can use our inner warrior to move forward, to expand and grow. And with that, we need one of the powers of the Christ, one of the 12 powers, is our will, our human will. Charles Fillmore, in The Revealing Word, said the will is the executive faculty of the mind, the determining factor in man. What one wills or decrees comes to pass in his experience. And so you shall decree a thing, and it shall be established in your life. You shall decree a thing with your will, with your intention. So you see, when the king archetype and the warrior archetype works together, we can keep moving forward, decree a thing, and make it happen. The magician is all about making things happen. My oldest son has a lot of magician energy. He can move in a whole new place, get a whole new job, and start all over again. And people say, how does he do it? How does he do it? It's like magic. But he knows the principles, the power we have with consciousness, his intention, his willpower, his consciousness. He decrees a thing, and it is so. And he trusts the synchronicity of the universe to support him in his path. Now, other examples of the archetype of the magician. In the Bible, we have Elijah, who won a contest with other magicians. There were a lot of magicians back there, all saying they were the best. Follow my God, I'm the best. So Elijah had a contest, and he said, I can start a fire out of wood that's been soaked in water. How can he do that? I had a teacher that once say it might have been kerosene, but that's a whole nother story. He poured what looked like water on the wood, and sure enough, it started on fire. He won the contest. He razzle-dazzled them with his powers of a magician. Elijah and Elisha both represent the spiritual I am consciousness. When we awaken to our divine nature and know the true power that is within us. Now, each generation has had a magician. Merlin of the King Arthur legend was so famous. He was the king of magicians. He was totally cool. He protected King Arthur. He called the shots. He made things happen. When we were young, we had Mickey Mouse, who put on the magician's hat and tried to be a magician, but he wasn't old enough or experienced enough or wise enough. So he made all those brooms and buckets of water move, and pretty soon he was drowning in water, buckets of water. He didn't have the wisdom yet to use his own powers. Obi-Wan Kenobi, may the Force be with you, knew the power of the inner magician. Harry Potter is so popular because it awakens our inner knowing of the magic that is in us all. We have to make sure to hold on to that magic as we continue on in life. I know my own father worked so hard that by the end of his life, the fire in his belly had long gone out. We have to protect the magic in our life, renew it, reclaim that archetype of the magician. Decree a thing, and it is so. Finally, we come to the fourth archetype, the lover. Love is the creative power in the universe. Nothing could be more powerful. Religion has brought a lot of guilt and shame to the lover archetype. It can be misused if it's not aligned with truth, with love, with kindness. Samson and Delilah had egoic human love. They did each other in. They misunderstood and misused the power of love. And the outcome wasn't a punishment, but the outcome of the law of cause and effect. That which we put out there comes back on us. Love is the greatest creative power of the universe. So use it with wisdom, never for harm, for the highest good of all. So what kind of father archetype do you relate to the most? The king, the warrior, the magician, the lover. I invite with you to join us on our Zoom gathering. We start today at 2 p.m. and we can discuss this further. Meanwhile, we'll be hearing from Michael on the flute in a minute or two. But first, let's do our love offering like we do each Sunday together. And once again, we thank all of you who are so dedicated to supporting Unity Church of the Cumberland through these times. If you'd like to tithe, you can go to our website, unitycookville.org, and click on the donate button. Or you can mail your tithe to 823 East 10th Street, Cookeville, Tennessee, 38501. Now let's do our prayer together as we bless our love offerings. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And I am grateful. And now, Michael. Beautiful music to stir up those inner fires of spirit in the belly of our soul, to ignite those inner powers that rule us of love and compassion, to move forward on the spiritual path. We call forth that magic of spirit to manifest in our life for the highest good of all. And we give love to those divine ideas that are attempting to manifest in and through us and around us. We are the power of love to manifest good in the world. And we call that forth now until every man, woman, and child awakens to the oneness we share, to the love that we are. Thank you, Father, Mother God, in the nature of the Christ. Amen.